Hey guys, Denal Douglas, aka ARVN Ranger here, and today I'm gonna get to show you a few new features that I've added for my mod Operation Remembrance. These are mostly just features that some people might not figure out the first time just looking at them, so just to give people a heads up, or a head start, we'll start with something simple, something that might actually look like a bug at first. And watch, if you look at the US spawn points on the right, they disappeared. Now they're back. That's not a bug, that's a normal feature. It's basically a temporary spawn point that I'm using to only allow US troops to spawn at this control point for a certain time. It's a feature that's mostly used on single player just to keep the game balanced, so to help the bot performance. And actually, on this map, after I think it's about 4 minutes, those spawn points will disappear entirely, and then no more US troops can spawn at this flag. The reason why they disappear like that is because the way they function is kind of like the tunnel spawn point or the US spawn crate. They're actually an invisible vehicle or the same entity as a vehicle. It's called a player control object, but they self-destruct after 5 seconds and then respawn. So that's why you'll see them on the screen and then they disappear and come right back, because they self-destructed and then respawned right away. And if I kept this going for long enough, you would see that, yeah, eventually no more control point or no more spawns appear for this flag. So that's what that's about. I don't expect that'll be seen very often in multiplayer. It might be, I'm not sure, but as far as I know, there are no maps that will have that in multiplayer in the end. But yeah, if you do see that on multiplayer or single player, that's what that is. And now we're on to the map Quang Tri 1968, and I have two things to show everyone here. The first is a SemiCover System that I carried over from Forgotten Hope Secret Weapons for machine gun emplacements. And it's really simple. When you're in a machine gun emplacement, just hold S and your character will duck down. There is one minor problem with this, and that you just have to let go of S to stand up. But if you notice, the machine gun stays in the up position, and then it can't be used properly. In fact, if you go back too far, it really doesn't look right. So what you have to do is you have to hit the W key right away. But if you do it too quickly, it won't always go forward again as soon as you stand up. So you have to be careful with how you use that. But it's still, and sometimes it does look a little bit awkward, like as you can see there, it kind of clips into the sandbag. But I think it's worth the awkwardness for the aid in performance. And then over here we have an entirely new vehicle which was added from Battlegroup Vietnam, the M24 chassis, and it actually has two different features that I want to show everyone. The first is the new Crosshair system for tanks and a couple other vehicles. So when you get in to the driver's position or gunner's position, you'll notice there's no crosshair. So just hit your alternate camera view, which by default I believe is C. I know it's C for me, and boom, crosshairs, actual tank crosshairs. I took these from Forgotten Hope Secret Weapons and made a minor modification to the crosshair model just to make it work a little bit better. The original was slightly too large, but as you can see, this works just perfectly. Another thing I'll point out, I fixed the shell trajectory for all tanks. Now they don't act like howitzers, they actually fire straight. So that's a new feature. Another thing I can show off is some tanks, not all of them yet, sorry. Some tanks do have a cover system for the commander's position as well. As you'll see, if I hold the down arrow, you'll see my character completely disappears. So he can't be shot at this point. Also note that you can't use the machine gun in the cover mode, bless you, because it kind of flexes up out of the way. That's really just to keep people from ducking into safety and still being able to use the machine gun. So once you're ready to shoot, just hold the up arrow until your character completely pops up again, and then you can use the machine gun as usual. This isn't the same cover system as Forgotten Hope Secret Weapons has for the commander's position. That's an actual animation of the character ducking down, as far as I know. My system actually rotates the character's entire body down into the hull of the tank, where it can't be seen. Because that can't work for all tanks, I think I might end up bringing over the Forgotten Hope Secret Weapons cover system for the exposed machine gun positions eventually, but that's not going to happen in version 1.0 of Operation Remembrance. So for now, some vehicles will have this feature and some won't. But I would like to eventually make that a standardized design where all of them have that cover system. And now we're at Quezon, and I have, again, a couple different features to show everyone. Going to start as the U.S. Marines and then switch over to the NVA. I did a video showing off the new AC47 last week, but I want to do something just a little bit more detailed to show people how it really works. So, as the pilot, your default view is looking straight ahead, and then to make this aircraft work the way the real AC47 did, what I did was I actually borrowed someone who did a single-player conversion for the map Fall of Saigon, where the AC47 used to be the only map the AC47 was on, added a function that would turn the camera to the left. And it really didn't do much beyond just being there to look cool. So I decided to take that feature and turn it into something a little more practical. So now what you do for the AC47 to use it properly, is when you're flying it, you hold secondary fire, which for me is control, and you look to the left automatically. You don't have to move the mouse or anything. And then as you're flying, you can also go to the external view. You just hold W and integrate your pitch, which is the up-down arrows, and roll, which for the most part is A. Your yaw is A and D. Roll is the left and right arrows. So you use those controls to aim, and then let's see if I can find target. Hang on, swing around. Yeah, I reworked Siege of Quezon extensively. But there we go. Got troops on the ground now. So you line it up as best you can, get an estimate, and yes, this will strike, the rounds will strike to the left of the crosshair. So just take an estimate and open fire. And as you can see, I missed there, miss again. There we go. Now I got him. And try another one. There he goes. That one was right on. And then when you're ready to fly normally again, you just let go of secondary fire and you're looking straight forward again. So that's pretty much it for the AC47 and how to use it. Yes, it is tricky, but once you learn how to use it, it is an effective weapon. So I hope people enjoy that change and the technical accuracy, as well as actually giving the pilot something more to do than just drop bombs that the real AC-47s didn't even have to begin with. So that's that. Okay, so we're back on Siege of Quezon as the NVA this time, and I want to show you guys two new features for artillery. The first feature I'm going to show you guys is standard for all fixed artillery and some of the self-propelled artillery, but not all of them, and that is switchable ammunition. Anyone who's played Forgotten Hope Secret Weapons, and to a lesser extent Forgotten Hope, will probably recognize this feature. You can actually switch the ammunition your main gun fires. So standard fire is, or by default, is your normal high explosive round, and then if you use your down arrow, just hold it for about half a second, and then fire, you'll notice it switched to a smoke round, which can be used for providing cover, obviously. And then switch back to explosive round, just press the up arrow, and you're back to explosive. And then the other feature I have, which is also taken from Forgotten Hope Secret Weapons, the spotting system for Battlefield Vietnam with the binoculars and the right-click when you're in artillery is gone. For one thing, I never liked the system. I could never get it to work properly. For me, I could never use it effectively, and then I don't know exactly how this happened, but in the course of my modding, I broke that system. It doesn't work at all anymore. I even tried going back to the default coding for the spotting system, and yeah, I somehow did something that broke it permanently. So all you see now is the spotting system points to where the person who called the spot was standing, not the target they were looking at. So, and that kind of made artillery useless over long ranges. Basically anything you can't see, you can't shoot effectively. So I added this feature, which I saw in a specific Forgotten Hope Secret Weapons map. The name's not in English. I believe it translates to Monsters of Steel. It's a ship and aircraft map only. And that map had a very unique feature that wasn't in the main game. The torpedoes had markers on the minimap, so you could see where they were going, and you could also see inbound torpedoes coming towards you. So I looked into the coding to figure out how they did that, and once I figured it out, I did the exact same thing for the artillery, so you can tell where you're shooting. So if I aim at a distance and pull up my map, you'll notice on the minimap that when I shoot, and see here's me with the little arrow, when I fire, you'll see a little marker go out, and that shows where your round is going. So that would have impacted on the hill off in the distance. If I add a little elevation, fire again. So that one hit right by the bridge over the river. So it gives you an idea of where you're shooting. It makes it a lot easier to target control points. Like for example, I think you can just barely see the AC47 in the distance there, parked on the runway. But let's pretend that's something you can't see. You can see it on the minimap. So, fire a round. That actually landed a little short. You could tell where the round hit. Let's load up and try again. Still a little short. I think it's hitting the fence. And there we go, knocked it out. And then, if say you want to bombard a specific control point, you just get your traverse aimed at the flag, take a guess on the elevation, and fire. And watch your round. See, that actually landed short, but I did get 2 kills with that. So, let's add a little bit, fire again, and bam. So now I'm effectively bombarding the base. Now let's see if I can hit something at long range. I'm going to go for the truck at the, it's the only white marker at the control point on the far right. So let's take a guess right here. Give it time. Short. Add some elevation. Try again. Elevation's close. I'm off a little to the left. Maybe a little more elevation. That was a little too high. And as you can see, sometimes it can be a little bit goofy. If you ever see the round or the marker just start to spin really weird, wherever it started to spin is where your round actually hit. It's a little bit of a bug that I don't think I'll ever be able to entirely fix. And also sometimes it'll flicker out of existence for a split second and then come back. That's also something I'm not sure whether or not I can fix. But there we go, see, I got the truck. So that's how that works. And then, as I mentioned in my kit and class article, having an NCO with binoculars or a tanker with binoculars to kind of stay back from the main action but still see where you're shooting to give you fine-tune adjustments can also help a lot on multiplayer. So that's a feature that I hope people will put to good use. Okay, so now we're on Operation Cedar Falls, and I've been saving the best two features for last, so this is the first one. And no, this feature isn't that I got a version of Cedar Falls that has single-player support, although I am rather happy about that. I can't take credit for it, though. It was someone else who did that and actually figured out how to get the bots working somewhat with tunnels. There are a few problems, but it's not too bad. But actually what I'm going to be showing you guys this time is mortars. The mortars in Battlefield Vietnam have been a source of jokes for a long time for how broken they are. They don't function like an actual mortar. Well, now they do. If you aim it down, your round will go farther. If you aim it up, your round will have less trajectory because it actually goes straight up. In fact, I think I have a not too bright bot over here trying to use them, and you can actually see his rounds going straight up, or almost straight up as he shoots them. Bots really can't use mortars that well, but if I take a shot, you'll see. Oh, and for some reason the spotting round, or the mini-map marker doesn't work properly for mortars. I'll have to take a look into why that happens, but yeah, if you shoot, if you pull the mortar straight back and fire up, you'll actually get a hit eventually that's pretty close to your position. Fire a couple rounds, see where they, give it a few seconds, see where they impact, if it actually works correctly. Yeah, those markers are going wild. I'm not sure what's up with that. I think I might have a slight bug that's actually causing them to fall behind, which isn't supposed to happen. I'll get that fixed, but yeah, now your mortar rounds, instead of just going in an arc like a regular artillery, they actually do go up really high and then come straight down. So you can actually hit close targets that are much higher very easily. It is difficult to aim even when the mortars are working properly, but once you get used to it, it does work pretty effectively. And I also did make it so, again, when they're working properly, which the M29 here doesn't seem to be, your minimum range on the mortar will never damage it or hurt you as the player inside it. Another feature I implemented in mortars in general was specific maximum ranges. So the Russian RM41 50mm mortar and all 60mm mortars have a maximum range of 500 meters. So any of them could hit any of the control points you can see on my rangefinder here. The M29 here and 81mm mortars, again, when they're working correctly, have a maximum range of 1,000 meters. The M30 107mm mortar, which I can't show right now because it's not on this map, has a maximum range of 1,500 meters. So you won't be able, don't even try to hit something beyond those ranges with one of those mortars. It just won't work. You might get a few extra meters of extra range if the target you're shooting at is at a lower altitude than you are, but it's not going to be much. Oh, and another joke that's been made with mortars is there are some people on the original version of Vietnam who could actually use them really effectively against helicopters. Not anymore. It's not even possible at this point. Pretty much the only way to aim correctly is estimation, someone spotting for you, and actually getting the marker rounds to work correctly, which I promise I'll take a look at and try to get fixed. But so that's mortars for Operation Remembrance. Okay, last new feature for Operation Remembrance, or last new major feature that needs to be explained, and actually one of my favorites. So here we have the F4 Phantom, and I did add a second passenger position. Hopefully you guys have seen in I think the first article I mentioned, there are 5 different versions of the Phantom. They're mostly, or actually they're all, at this point, differentiated by what weapons the pilot has, either guided missiles or an autocannon for the primary weapon, and then a mix of guided missiles or different types of bombs for the secondary weapon. The co-pilot always has the same loadout for all of the different Phantom variants. Actually, I think there's more than 5. 6 or 7. The first is the second type of missile, which is good at longer ranges than the pilot's missiles, but not very good at short range. And the other feature is one that I'm extremely proud of just because of how unusual it is, and that is decoy flares for heat-seeking missiles. So that's the secondary weapon here. So I'll show you guys what it looks like normally when you just right-click. It does this. And there's actually a flare that falls to the ground. And yeah, that pulsing effect is something that I can't really fix at the moment. But what that's used for is, let's see if I can get a heat-seeking rocket on my tail. There's one, but that missed. Bear with me a little bit. Okay, so when you get a heat-seeking rocket locked onto you, and I paused it so it didn't just hit me while I'm talking. You can't see it, it's kind of off the screen to my lower right. But when you get a heat-seeking rocket tracking you, here it comes, you just fire, and boom. Missile hits the flare instead of your jet, which just got shot down by someone with a handheld machine gun. Okay, so I'm back now. I had to restart the game. Actually, coincidentally, I'm back in here with the exact same bot as my pilot. So, another feature I forgot to mention is you don't just have... There is another way besides using the external camera view to see when you've got a heat-seeking missile on your tail. From the first-person view, excuse me, you can also hold W and look behind. So you can watch behind, and here comes a missile deploying flare, boom, and you can even see it explode behind. Didn't damage the jet at all. The only downside, bots are idiot pilots. The only downside to the flare feature is that it only works against one missile at a time. If you get 2 missiles on your tail, odds are you'll only have enough time to stop one of them, but it still gives you a much better chance than being just stuck with a heat-seeking missile on your tail and not being able to do anything about it, other than maybe being able to maneuver out of the way. So I think that's a very useful feature. It'll probably see more use on both multiplayer, definitely, because bots unfortunately can't use it. And another thing I forgot to mention is once you fire the flare, yes, it does kind of kick you out into the flare. It actually uses the same game mechanic as the BRDM from Fall of Saigon with the guided missiles that you could actually fly yourself. It uses the exact same system, and that's actually necessary for the flare to work. Because basically how the flare works is, like the jet, it's an actual vehicle, and it has an engine. Now that engine doesn't actually do anything as far as being able to control the flare. The flare just falls to the ground. But that engine being there provides something else for the heat-seeking missile to lock onto to decoy it away from your jet. You can exit out of the flare prematurely by pressing the enter exit button, and the flare will continue to fall, but since the game considers it an unoccupied vehicle at that point, the engine will be turned off and the missiles won't be drawn to it. So if you exit, if you fire a flare and then realize you didn't mean to, you can just exit back out and you'll be back in the co-pilot seat. But if you fire a flare to actually stop a missile and you exit too soon, the missile will go right past the flare and end up hitting your jet anyway. So just be cautious for that. And I feel like there was one other thing I had to bring up. Oh yeah, and then as you saw, when you are in the flare and it gets hit by the missile, it doesn't kill you, it just throws you right back into the co-pilot's seat unharmed. And then you can continue playing and fire again if you have to. So that's the heat-seeking decoy. And like I said, probably my favorite mechanic and the one I'm most proud of just because of how it works. As far as I know, no one's ever come up with an idea like that, but it's so simple. And as someone who's been hit by heat-seeking missiles very many times, it's glad to have a defense again. I'm glad to have a defense against them. The one downside is that it's only in the Phantom for now, and probably permanently. It won't be in any other aircraft because it can only be used by a secondary person. If you were the pilot and you tried to deploy a flare while you were occupying the flare, your aircraft would be unoccupied and it would probably just crash. So that only works on aircraft with a secondary position, and for right now, for technical accuracy, that's largely reserved for the F4 Phantom. Actually, I don't even know how widespread decoy flares were in Vietnam, so I'm not entirely sure that their presence is 100% historically accurate, but in all honesty, I'm too proud of the feature to take it out, even if it's not 100% accurate. So that's in the game for good. Whoa. So yeah, that's that, and I think for now that's going to do it. Those are all the features I have to show off in this video, so I'm still hoping to have the mod out as a whole by the end of October, maybe sooner. Things are going really well. I'm almost at the halfway point in terms of developing the 25 maps that will be released with the first version, version 1.0, and then there will be 25 more maps in version 1.1, and then probably another 20 to 25 in version 1.2, which will be several months after, or each one will be released several months apart. So I think that's going to do it, everyone. Hope you enjoy the video. Follow Operation Remembrance, especially if you're new to Operation Remembrance, haven't seen this before. I'll have the link to the ModDB page down in the description so you can take a look at that. And yeah, that'll do it. Have fun with the game, guys.